What if I told you that the exact moment you feel the urge to respond is the moment you should stay silent? What if I told you that every emotional reaction you give teaches someone how to control you? And what if the reason some men lose interest, lose respect, or suddenly pull away isn't because you were too distant, but because you gave access to someone who never earned your presence? Listen closely, because when you finish this, you won't just see the traps. You'll understand something far more powerful against those who try to manipulate you. You were never meant to chase. You were never meant to explain. You were never meant to beg for clarity. You are a queen, and queens do not get caught in traps. They rise above them. Silence is not weakness, it is awareness. People have misunderstood silence for too long. They think silence means fear. They think it means submission, confusion, or emotional defeat. But real silence, the kind that comes from knowing yourself, is none of these things. Silence isn't the absence of strength. It is the presence of self-control. A woman who is silent is not empty. She is full. So full that she no longer spills herself into every moment demanding a reaction. There is great power in knowing you don't have to answer everything. Not every comment deserves your breath. Not every message deserves your energy. Not every provocation deserves your attention. Most people react because they are afraid of what silence might suggest. They fear being misunderstood. They fear being forgotten. They fear losing control. But the woman who has mastered herself knows something different. Silence does not take her voice away. It protects it. When you speak too fast, you speak from emotion. When you speak after thinking, you speak from truth. Silence creates space, and space shows intentions. When you stop responding immediately, people begin to reveal who they really are. They get uncomfortable. They get impatient. They show whether they wanted connection or control. A high-value woman does not rush to explain herself. She knows the right people won't need convincing. They will feel her clarity without words. There is a quiet moment where power shifts. It happens when you realize you don't have to join every emotional exchange. You can step back. You can observe. You can choose peace over performance. Silence isn't a wall, it's a mirror. And many are unsettled by what they see reflected when you stop speaking. This is why silence feels threatening to those who rely on reactions. Without your response, they lose influence. Without your emotion, they lose direction. Reacting gives others information. Silence gives you information. It shows who respects boundaries. It shows who grows impatient. It shows who manipulates when they no longer have access to your energy. A woman rooted in awareness knows this. She doesn't withdraw to punish. She withdraws to protect her clarity. And in that stillness, she listens, not to words, but to patterns. Not to promises, but to actions. Silence sharpens perception. It lets you hear what was always there beneath the noise. And once you see this, you notice how often people try to disturb your silence. Not because they miss you, but because they miss the power they had when you reacted. And then another truth quietly appears. Once silence is established, something else happens. Some people don't seek your peace, they seek your attention. And that's where the next trap lies. When someone provokes to be noticed, attention becomes a currency. Those who lack inner fullness crave it the most. Attention seeking isn't always loud. Sometimes it comes as criticism. Sometimes emotional distance. Sometimes as a sudden silence meant to pull you closer. The attention trap is tricky because it feels personal. It makes you think it's about connection when really it's about validation. Provocation is not always about anger, it's about being seen. When someone challenges your emotions, your worth, or creates confusion, they are asking silently, "Do I still matter to you?" And many women respond, not because they want to, but because they feel pulled to restore harmony, clarity, or balance. Here's the truth. A high-value woman doesn't rush to solve uncertainty created intentionally. When a man provokes to be noticed, he isn't asking for understanding. He is asking for confirmation that he still has influence. Attention tells him, I still have access to your emotions. And once he knows that the behavior repeats, that's how emotional patterns form. One provokes, the other responds. And soon, attention replaces respect. The trap works because it pretends to be importance. It whispers, if you don't react, you don't care. But that's false. Caring doesn't require chaos. Interest doesn't require disturbance. Respect doesn't test boundaries. A woman grounded in herself knows that attention given without intention leaks energy. She chooses where her energy flows. She doesn't chase stimulation. She doesn't reward inconsistency. When provocation is met with calm, the game collapses because provocation survives only on reaction. Without reaction, the person must confront their own emptiness. That discomfort shows everything. Some escalate, some withdraw, some call you cold. But notice this, none of it comes from love. It comes from loss of control. A woman who has mastered attention knows not all invitations deserve acceptance. Some are traps pretending to be chances to explain, fix, or connect. She knows clarity doesn't come from reacting louder. It comes from reacting less. There's dignity in not feeding every emotional hunger placed in front of you. There's power in knowing when silence is the honest answer. Because when you stop responding to provocation, a deeper layer appears. What starts as attention seeking often turns into something heavier, something more manipulative. When attention fails, guilt enters. That's when the emotional weight shifts from reaction to responsibility. Guilt is one of the most powerful emotional tools, not because it shouts, but because it whispers. It tells you that you are selfish, distant, or cold for choosing yourself, that your boundaries hurt others. It shifts focus away from behavior onto your conscience. The guilt trap convinces you that your silence is cruelty, your clarity rejection, your self-respect abandonment. But emotional maturity knows this: you are responsible for your actions, not how others choose to feel. A high-value woman doesn't confuse care with self-sacrifice. She can care without collapsing. She can understand without surrendering her boundaries. Guilt comes when direct control fails. It shows after provocation fails, after attention is denied. It pressures you to explain yourself, justify your needs, or soften your stance. But real connection never requires emotional debt. If someone makes you feel guilty for protecting peace, they are not asking for closeness, they are asking for access. Access without respect is always costly. A woman awakened to this stops apologizing for choosing herself. She stops shrinking to make others comfortable. She stops carrying emotional burdens not hers to carry. She knows guilt is not always a sign of wrongdoing. Sometimes it is just someone else's unmet expectations. Expectations placed without agreement are not obligations. They are projections. The moment you release guilt, you reclaim your center. You stop negotiating your worth. You stop explaining your boundaries. Something quiet but powerful happens. The emotional fog lifts. The dynamic shifts. Those who relied on your guilt begin to fade. Connection built on guilt is not connection. It's control disguised as care. And once you see this, you can't unsee it. You start to move differently, respond differently, choose differently. And with that shift, you see that silence, attention, and guilt are not separate traps. They are steps in the same pattern. A pattern meant to pull you from yourself. But now you are aware, you are grounded, you are awake. And awareness quietly ends manipulation. When he pulls away to make you chase, there's a silence that heals and a silence that manipulates. One brings peace, the other panic. Withdrawal starts quietly. Message is slow, energy shifts. Presence fades. Suddenly you feel it. That tightening in the chest, the question forming in your mind, what did I do wrong? This is not distance for reflection. It is distance to pull you in. When someone withdraws to make you chase, they are testing attachment. They want to see if your self-worth will bend. Many women respond, not because they are weak, but because they care. They sense the shift and try to restore closeness. They check in, they soften their voice, they reassure. But every step forward teaches the other person, if I pull away, she will come closer. So the pattern forms. Withdrawal becomes a tool, distance becomes power. Chasing replaces mutual effort. A high-value woman pauses. She does not rush to fill silence. She does not scramble to prove her worth. She knows connection that disappears when effort is shared was never stable. She reminds herself quietly, love does not need pursuit. Respect does not require anxiety. When she feels the urge to chase, she turns inward. She asks, why does his absence feel louder than my presence? Awareness is born. Chasing is not love, it is fear. And fear is never a solid foundation. When a woman stops chasing, something remarkable happens. The dynamic shifts. The one who withdrew must now choose return with intention or fade. Either way, clarity arrives. Once you stop chasing, you notice something else, how easily affection can be replaced by approval. That is where the validation trap waits. When he seeks praise without commitment, validation feels good. It always has. Being admired, wanted, chosen in words. But validation without commitment is warmth without fire. It comforts briefly, then disappears. Some men don't want partnership, they want reassurance. They want to be admired without giving consistency, clarity, or direction. They enjoy your praise, but when it's time to show up, they hesitate, delay, deflect. This is the validation trap. It keeps you emotionally engaged while remaining undefined. It feeds on encouragement, avoids responsibility. Validation feels like connection, so imbalance is hard to see. A high-value woman watches not how often she is praised, but how often she is prioritized. Words are easy. Energy is not. Compliments cost nothing. Consistency costs everything. When someone seeks validation without commitment, they are unsure of themselves. They outsource confidence to you. No woman is meant to be a mirror for someone who refuses to grow. Validation should flow naturally, not be demanded. When a woman sees she is being used for affirmation instead of partnership, she steps back, not angrily, not dramatically, but with quiet understanding. She stops overgiving praise. She stops filling gaps. She stops offering more than is returned. This is when truth shows. Those who came only for validation feel exposed. Those who came sincerely remain because genuine interest doesn't disappear when praise is reduced. It deepens when respect is present. A woman grounded in self-worth doesn't compete for attention. She doesn't audition for affection. Validation is feedback, not love. Love needs presence, action, direction. When she stops validating empty intentions, she reclaims energy. And then she sees clearly validation seeking often hides another behavior, one that pulls her into defense instead of peace. Because when praise isn't enough, provocation often follows. 6. Emotional baiting and the need to prove yourself. Emotional baiting is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It shows up in small challenges, questioning comments, backhanded compliments, comparisons. It pushes just enough to make you react. The goal is simple: to pull you into proving your worth. When someone baits emotionally, they are not after truth. They want control. They want to see how easily you can be shaken, how fast you defend yourself, how much effort it takes for you to explain who you are. And the moment you start proving yourself, the balance changes. You move from being chosen to trying to be chosen. A high-value woman notices this pattern early. She sees how she feels after certain talks. Drained, second-guessing, a little diminished. She knows anyone who needs her to prove her value has already failed to see it. Worth doesn't need proving, it needs recognition. When she refuses to engage in emotional baiting, something powerful happens. The hook has nowhere to land. She doesn't correct every misunderstanding. She doesn't defend every accusation. She doesn't explain her character to those who want to misunderstand her. She knows her energy is sacred, and sacred things are not left in careless hands. This is where real freedom starts. The freedom to let others think what they want. The freedom to walk away from conversations that shrink her. The freedom to stay whole without external validation. When a woman stops proving herself, she becomes still. And in that stillness, truth speaks louder than words ever could. Those who are baiting lose interest. Those who are sincere move closer because emotional games only work on people willing to play. And now she no longer is. She learns that withdrawal, validation, and baiting were never random, they were tests. Tests of self-worth, tests of boundaries, tests of awareness. And she passes not by responding right, but by refusing to leave herself. She stands calm, clear, unmoved. And from this place, something deeper begins. Because when you stop chasing, stop validating, stop proving, you start to attract something entirely different. And that changes everything. 7. Why over-explaining destroys mystery and power? There is quiet strength in knowing when to stop speaking. Not because you have nothing to say, but because you understand not everyone deserves access to your inner world. Over-explaining often starts with good intentions. You want to be understood. You want to clear confusion. You want peace. But slowly, explanation turns into justification. And justification turns into self-betrayal. Every extra sentence after your truth invites someone to debate your reality. A high-value woman notices when her words become defensive. She feels it in her body. Her chest tightens. Her voice softens too much. That is the moment she pauses. She remembers life is not a courtroom. Her boundaries are not evidence. Her emotions don't need approval. Mystery is not manipulation. It is self-respect. When you explain less, people listen more. When you say only what is necessary, your words carry weight. Over-explaining drains power because it puts your worth in someone else's hands. Understanding cannot be forced. Some people don't want clarity. They want leverage. They ask questions not to understand, but to poke holes, to create doubt, to see how far they can push. A woman who has mastered herself does not chase comprehension. She gives truth once and observes. If respect follows, she continues. If confusion is used as a weapon, she steps back because explanation to the wrong person is self-exposure. Silence preserves energy. It creates space. It keeps your inner world intact. Mystery makes others approach with care. It demands presence. When mystery replaces explanation, dynamics shift. People either rise to meet you or show discomfort with boundaries. And that discomfort can push them to another tactic, one that seems harmless but slowly erodes self-worth. Because when explanation ends, familiarity starts knocking. 8. The trap of let's just be friends. Friendship is beautiful when honest, but when used to avoid clarity, it's a disguise. Let's just be friends often comes after emotional closeness, intimacy, shared vulnerability. It sounds gentle, reasonable, mature, but it can hold confusion. This trap isn't about friendship. It's about access without responsibility. It lets someone keep your presence without choosing you fully. Enjoy emotional support without commitment. A high-value woman senses the imbalance immediately. She notices her role stays the same, but his intention disappears. She is still expected to listen, care, be available. But now without direction. This isn't friendship. It's emotional convenience. True friendship doesn't start where romantic clarity ends. It starts with mutual respect. When just friends softens rejection or delays a decision, it keeps you in limbo, neither released nor chosen. And limbo drains the soul. A woman who values herself doesn't stay in spaces that blur her identity. She doesn't shrink her desires to fit someone else's indecision. She knows closeness without commitment is not neutral, it costs energy, so she chooses clarity over comfort. She steps away, not angrily or bitterly, but with grace. She honors her feelings enough to protect them, because staying in undefined connection slowly teaches you to accept less than you deserve. She was not born to settle. When she declines unclear friendship, she regains her center. And in that space, something important shows itself. Those who truly value her respect her boundary. Those who only value access resist it. And resistance reveals motive. Because when familiarity is no longer guaranteed, confusion often becomes the next strategy. And repeated confusion becomes control. 9. Confusion as a tool of control. Confusion is exhausting. It keeps you thinking, replaying conversations, questioning yourself. It creates emotional fog. When clarity is withheld, your mind fills the gap, often with self-blame. Confusion is rarely accidental when it repeats. It is not miscommunication when patterns remain. It is a strategy. When someone keeps you unsure about where you stand, how they feel, what they want, they keep power. A confused mind is easier to lead. A high-value woman notices when she feels unclear after interactions. She notices shifting answers, words that contradict actions. She knows consistency is not perfection. It is honesty. Confusion quietly erodes trust. It keeps you emotionally invested without grounding. The longer you stay, the harder it is to leave. But awareness breaks the cycle. When a woman calls confusion what it is, she regains agency. She stops decoding mixed signals. She stops chasing clarity she should be given. She chooses peace over puzzles, because clarity flows naturally when intentions are clean. When confusion fades, truth appears. A woman who leaves confusion doesn't lose connection. She loses illusion, and in that loss, she gains self-trust. She learns to trust feelings, patterns over promises, intuition, even when words sound convincing. This is when her inner voice is louder than external noise. She no longer needs explanations, unclear friendships, or endless circular conversations. She knows where she stands because she stands within herself. The world responds differently because confusion only survives where boundaries are absent. And now boundaries exist. 10. The ego test. When he challenges your worth, not every challenge strengthens you. Some are meant to shrink you. The ego test doesn't arrive as an insult first. It comes softly, almost playfully. A comment questioning your standards. A remark comparing you to someone else. A suggestion you're asking too much. It seems harmless, but inside something tightens. The ego test is not about truth. It is about measurement. How much will you tolerate? How far will your self-worth bend? How fast will you adjust to stay accepted? A high-value woman recognizes the test not by words, but by how they make her feel. She notices subtle pressure to shrink, to justify her needs, to soften her expectations. That pressure is the test. When someone challenges your worth, they often show their limits. They measure you by what they can offer, not what you deserve. Many women respond by shrinking, lowering standards to keep the connection. But here's the quiet truth. Anything that requires shrinking to be accepted is too expensive. A woman rooted in self-mastery doesn't argue tests of worth. She doesn't defend standards. She doesn't convince anyone of value. She knows value isn't proven in debate. It is revealed in presence. When she feels worth challenged, she pauses. She breathes. She steps back. And in that stillness, she asks a powerful question: do I feel expanded here or diminished? That question alone ends the test. Ego games need participation. She no longer participates. She knows someone who truly sees her doesn't need to test her to feel secure. She doesn't rise to the test. She rises above it, and then something shifts. Those testing her ego feel unsettled. They sense loss of influence because she silently decides to stop placing her value in anyone else's hands. Once that decision is made, another truth appears. Challenges to worth often come disguised as reactions and teach lessons because your response becomes instruction. 11. Why reacting teaches people how to treat you. Every reaction is a message. Spoken or silent, it communicates something. React immediately, emotionally or defensively, and you are not just expressing yourself. You are setting a standard. You teach others what they can say, do, or withhold to get a response. Many people aren't manipulative. They are observant. They notice patterns. They notice what gets a reaction. They notice what disturbs your peace, and unconsciously, they repeat it. Reacting without awareness slowly trains people to treat you in ways you didn't choose. A high-value woman understands this quietly. She knows calm is not passive, it is instructive. When she does not react, she interrupts the pattern, she removes the reward. Without reward, behavior changes or disappears. She does not confuse silence with suppression. She feels fully, but chooses carefully what to express. She lets emotions pass through her, not control her. Reacting from emotion often gives away power. That power takes time to reclaim. She knows not every feeling needs expression. Some need space. Some need reflection. Some need rest. When she responds instead of reacts, she speaks from clarity. Her words carry weight differently. Her presence feels steady. Her boundaries feel firm without force. People sense it. They approach with more care, more intention, more respect, because she taught them silently that access to her energy is earned. And when someone continues to push, she does not escalate. She disengages because reacting is participating, and she no longer participates in dynamics that disturb her. She knows peace is not weakness. It is authority. Authority does not shout, it remains. And as she remains grounded, something else surfaces. Old memories, old feelings, old connections. Because when you stop reacting in the present, the past often knocks. And nostalgia can be the most seductive reaction of all. Nostalgia feels gentle. It feels warm and familiar. It brings back laughter, moments when people felt safe. But it's selective. It remembers the good and forgets the cost. When connections fade or things change, the mind reaches for comfort. It highlights the sweet parts and edits out the pain. And slowly, you start to question yourself. Maybe it wasn't that bad. Maybe you overreacted. Maybe you should try again. That's the trap. It pulls you backward just as you're trying to move forward. A woman who values herself doesn't deny the good memories. She just puts them in perspective. She remembers how she felt at the end, not just at the beginning. She remembers the confusion, the imbalance, the way her energy drained. Missing someone doesn't mean they were good for you. It means a bond existed, and bonds don't disappear just because clarity shows up. Nostalgia often comes when growth needs separation. It tests whether you trust memory or wisdom. She chooses wisdom. She honors what was without reopening what hurt. She doesn't romanticize inconsistency. She doesn't revisit lessons already learned, because returning to the past out of comfort only delays the future. She knows selective memory is an escape. She chooses presence instead. Presence reminds her who she is now, how far she's come, how calm she feels when she's aligned. She lets nostalgia pass through her like a wave. She feels it, then lets it go, because growth can feel lonely before it feels right. And in choosing herself again, without ego or longing, she steps into a deeper truth. Every trap she avoided prepared her for something more stable, more honest, more real. She stands ready, not guarded, not hardened, but awake. What comes next will meet her at that level. Words can heal, they can guide, they can build bridges where silence once stood. But words can also hide things. There's a quiet moment when you notice nothing is moving forward. The conversations sound deep, promises sound thoughtful, explanations feel sincere, yet nothing changes. That's when words stop being tools of truth and become tools of delay. Some people speak beautifully about the future, but never step into it. They talk about timing, healing, intention. Meanwhile, action stays just out of reach. A woman who values herself listens, not just to what is said, but to what never happens. She notices when conversations repeat instead of progress. When clarity is promised soon, when effort is always coming but never arrives. Words used to delay action sound wise. They appeal to patience. They ask for understanding. But patience misused becomes self-neglect. There's a difference between someone moving slowly with purpose and someone standing still with good words. Action has rhythm. Delay has none, only excuses. She doesn't argue with delayed action. She observes it. She doesn't rush to remind someone of their words. She watches whether those words ever become reality. Truth doesn't need repeated explanation. It needs embodiment. When she realizes words are being used to avoid commitment, responsibility, or growth, she feels a shift inside. She stops leaning in emotionally. She stops investing in potential. She stops confusing intention with effort. Words without action are choices. Every delayed step is a decision to remain where one is. She honors that choice by choosing herself. She doesn't punish, plead, or pressure. She simply withdraws expectation. When someone truly wants to build with you, you don't need to ask when it will start. It begins naturally when you stop waiting. Clarity arrives without confrontation. Often delay is not confusion, it's comfort. And comfort, when threatened, changes tone, because when words stop working, another strategy appears. When he plays the victim, vulnerability can feel soft and powerful. It opens hearts and creates connection. But some vulnerability is performed not to heal, but to bind. The trap starts with pain stories, disappointment, past wounds. He talks about what he's been through, how others failed him, how hard life has been. Naturally, empathy rises. You listen, you understand, you soften. Compassion is beautiful, but when it becomes obligation, it's dangerous. The rescue trap shifts roles. You move from partner to supporter to caretaker. Before you realize it, the relationship revolves around his struggles, his healing, his needs. Your boundaries feel selfish. Your expectations feel demanding. You're told subtly or directly that asking for more is unfair given what he's endured. A woman who values herself sees the difference between shared vulnerability and emotional dependence. Pain explained is not pain healed. Someone using wounds to avoid responsibility isn't asking for love, they're asking to be rescued. She doesn't shame pain. She doesn't dismiss struggle, but she doesn't take ownership of it either. True healing needs accountability, movement, choice. Someone who stays in victimhood removes themselves from agency. Without agency, there's no partnership, only imbalance. She notices how she feels in these dynamics: tired, guilty, responsible. Pressure to stay isn't fulfillment, it's being needed. Being needed is not the same as being valued. Rescue replaces reciprocity. Love can't grow where one is always falling and the other always catching. When she sees this clearly, she steps back, not coldly, not cruelly, but firmly. She offers compassion without surrender, understanding without entanglement. She stops trying to save because she knows you cannot heal someone who benefits from staying wounded. When she releases the rescue role, the dynamic shifts. Those ready to grow rise. Those who needed rescuing resist or leave. Connection built on rescue collapses without it. She no longer confuses emotional labor with love. Partnership is shared strength, not survival. By not rescuing, she rescues herself. She returns to her center, her calm, her clarity. Delayed action and victimhood were shields, avoiding growth, responsibility, and effort. Once she sees the pattern, she cannot unsee it. She moves forward not hardened, but wiser, open but anchored. What lies ahead will meet her only if it can stand on its own. She's no longer here to save. She's here to share. And that distinction changes everything. There's a pattern that confuses the heart more than it hurts it. One day, warmth, attention, presence. The next, distance, silence, absence. This is the hot and cold cycle. At first, it feels exciting, alive, intense. The contrast creates emotion. Unpredictability creates attachment. You wait for the warmth to return. Replay moments of closeness. Question what changed. Slowly, your emotional center begins to move outside yourself. The cycle works because the mind wants resolution. It wants balance, certainty. A woman who values herself notices this early, not by analyzing, but by listening to her body. She feels anxiety, restlessness, constant scanning. She knows love does not destabilize. Connection does not confuse. When affection comes and goes without reason, it creates dependency, not intimacy. Warmth feels earned, cold feels like punishment. Soon you measure yourself by someone else's mood. This is not romance. This is conditioning. A woman rooted in self-mastery steps back. She does not chase warmth. She does not fear cold. She asks a simple question. Is this bringing me peace or training me to tolerate uncertainty? That question changes everything. Once she sees the cycle clearly, it loses power. Inconsistency is not depth, it is avoidance. Someone who truly wants connection doesn't offer love in pieces. They don't disappear to feel powerful. They don't return only when it suits them. The cycle often signals